allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Zwicker?
Here.
Ms. Breyer? Here. Mr. Prince?
Here.
Mr. Person?
Here.
Ms. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all present.
Thank you. First item on the agenda are two proclamations.
Proclamations, Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas sexual violence affects someone in our nation every 2 minutes and approximately 73% know their assailants. And whereas children are disproportionately victimized by sexual violence, and whereas compared to the general population, survivors of sexual abuse and violence are 6 times more likely to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, 3 times more likely to suffer from depression, 13 times more likely to abuse alcohol, 26 times more likely to abuse drugs, and 4 times more likely to contemplate suicide. And whereas the Renton community is committed to social change and the protection of all, and whereas community members are encouraged to work together to help put an end to sexual violence, and whereas the Renton community promotes healing services for survivors of sexual assault by supporting our community partner, King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, now therefore I, Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton, do hereby proclaim April 2012 to be Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the City of Renton. And I encourage all citizens to respond to the issue of sexual assault by creating preventative workplace policies, addressing sexism and sexual harassment when confronted by it, engaging in discussions with family and friends, and making sexual assault prevention a priority in their community. In witness whereof, I've hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Renton to be affixed this 9th day of April 2012, signed Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
I move that this proclamation be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Corman, that this proclamation be adopted as read. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And Alan Waite from KSARC is here to receive this proclamation.
Mayor Law, City Council members, thank you for recognizing April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Sexual assault is a crime that violates the core of our society. It is often a violation that is hidden and kept secret. I applaud you, Mayor Law, and members of the Renton City Council for taking a stand to end the silence and to end sexual violence. Since 1976, when King County Sexual Assault Resource Center first began, we have called Renton our home. Although our offices have moved locations a couple of times, we've remained in Renton the entire 36 years. Throughout these 3.5 decades, our agency and Renton have partnered in amazing ways to serve the residents of this city. From our humble beginnings as a rape crisis line, we have grown in the services we provide, thanks in part to the generosity and support of the City of Renton. Currently, we provide to the residents of Renton, at no cost to them, services that include therapy, parent education, legal and medical advocacy, psychiatric services, and education and prevention, not to mention our continued 24-hour resource line. In 2011, King County Sexual Assault Resource Center provided service to 246 Renton residents. This worked out to over 3,000 hours of work with Renton residents who are victims, or the family of victims, of sexual assault or child abuse. Tomorrow night, as well as next Wednesday, April 18th at 6 p.m., King County Sexual Assault Resource Center will be hosting an evening of discussion around practical steps that we can all take to make our families, friends, and colleagues safer. More information about these events can be found on our website, www.ksarc.org. The important services that King County Sexual Assault Resource Center provides to the residents of Renton could not be possible without our partnership with the government of Renton. We thank you for the courage and vision that your leadership has provided in emphasizing the importance of services for these most vulnerable residents and for fighting to end sexual violence. We look forward to the next 36 years and beyond of collaboration between King County Sexual Assault Resource Center and the City of Renton. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I just want to mention just quickly, a lot of people think that King County Sexual Assault Resource Center is part of King County government, and it's not. The name is just unfortunately King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, but it's been a private organization that, as Alan said, for 36 years has provided tremendous support throughout this entire county. And I know those of us in Renton who've been able, Zanetta Fontes for one, a lot of people who've served on the board and have been involved in KSARC over these years have had the opportunity to see the wonderful success that this organization has made on changing that pattern. So anyway, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, next we got one more.
Proclamation, Records and Information Management Month. Whereas the management of records and information is critical to every business, organization, and government agency in facing the complexities of competition, customer service, and globalization, and whereas technologies for storing information are expanding the amounts of information that can be acquired, and whereas the need to use information to create value and plan strategically is a driving force in today's world, and whereas control of records and information is necessary for reduction of risk and liability, as well as for compliance with global standards. Now, therefore, I, Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton, do hereby proclaim April 2012 to be Records and Information Management Month in the City of Renton, and I encourage all citizens to recognize the important services performed by records and information professionals and to join me in this special observance. In witness whereof, I've here to set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Renton to be affixed this 9th day of April 2012, signed Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Breyer.
I move that council concur with this proclamation.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Breyer, seconded by Mr. Prince. Excuse me, that council concur with this proclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. It's my pleasure to present this to our city clerk, Bonnie Walton, for the wonderful job that she and her staff do for us on a daily basis. Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, moving on to administrative report, Mr. Covington.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a couple of items. First, as the council recalls, last week we had a public hearing on a hazard mitigation plan that our Fire and Emergency Services Department put together and wanted to receive input on. They are continuing that outreach in calling for a public forum to create a disaster resilient community. That forum will be Thursday, April 26th from 6:30 to 9 p.m. here in the council chambers. I wanted to bring it up at this early date because pre-registration is required by next Wednesday, April 18th. And so folks who are interested, this is an opportunity for people to get together to just talk about what things we could do in the event of a disaster to help bring our community back from that disaster into another thriving community and to be successful in that regard. So if folks are interested in attending, they need to contact us at 425-430-6700, or they can visit our website at rentonwa.gov. Secondly, as has been reported in the media, the administration has been exploring options relative to the location of the new downtown library that would meet our obligations while also providing our residents with an opportunity to vote on the issue. We've had some preliminary discussions with the King County Library System, and they are willing to work with us to hold an election on the location of the downtown library site as part of the August 7th primary election. At least one condition would be that we and they continue the design and permitting work on the Big 5 site so that no contracts have to be suspended or terminated. While the August 7th primary date sounds far off, the King County Elections Department has indicated that in order to meet the county's deadline for submitting items for the August ballot, the city will need to adopt a resolution calling for an election and provide a ballot title no later than April 25th. The council's last meeting before that deadline is Monday the 23rd, or 2 weeks from tonight. The administration's had some preliminary discussions with Council President Zwicker to explore a process to meet our deadline, and I'll now have him provide further information on and possible next steps.
Thank you, Mr. Covington. First, last week and today it's been busy. A lot of effort has gone into seeing if we can take what we got from Monday night and see if we could find a solution that works, I think, as Howard eloquently put it. of all of us working together. Especially to start out, I need to thank the mayor. Without his guidance and leadership, we would not be here tonight ready to discuss the things we want to discuss, and Jay has been pulled from many directions. Our attorney Larry Warren and Zanetta Fontes have also been at our beck and call to discuss our options and review how we could take care of the issues that we'd face if we wanted to pursue this. And then special thanks to all of the KCLS staff and especially Bill Potasic for having an open mind and listening to us and trying to work with us to come to a solution. And thanks to the public for an invigorating Monday night meeting. I think the mayor did a great job moderating it. I think my fellow council members did a great job articulating their thoughts on the matter. And while passions were high, I think for everyone, I think the crowd was respectful and made their points. So first, it's important to note that what we're going to talk about later isn't revisiting the library petition. It's about talking about honoring the spirit of the petition and the intent of that petition, which was giving the public a vote in the location of the downtown library. As Jay mentioned, if we wish to proceed to the August ballot, we are on a very tight timeline, basically 2 weeks. And to get there, we as a council and the public, all of you, we're going to all need to work together. While the goal will be to make the August ballot, if the council agrees, and again, this has not been brought up to council, it was just something as council president, I worked with the administration, we'll need to talk about it, the council will need to decide how they wish to proceed. That while the goal will be to make the August ballot, it's not a take it or leave it proposition if we can't get there. 2 weeks is a tight timeline, but that's our goals. We wanted to see if we could take a look at it, or I wanted to propose to my fellow council members if we could try that. However, our current discussions with KCLS necessitate that we try to make that guideline because our current contracts and the level of discussions that I was not a part of with KCLS said that was their preference. That's what we needed to do for them to consider modifying contracts, and we're going to try for that. If we're unable to make that deadline, it does not mean it's the end of all. It's not an either or that we have to make this August. There are other elections available, but I'm going to be proposing that our goal is to try to make it to the August ballot, which again, 2 weeks is our deadline. However, if we're unable to do that, the administration and everybody will have to go back and start negotiations with KCLS again. So we have some urgency to it, some reasoning for it, but we'll just see how it proceeds. It's my intention to, under new business later tonight, is then to actually talk with, have my fellow council members participate in a discussion, see how they feel about proceeding and that type of thing, and figuring out what our next steps in the process would be. But we did want to make sure that we kind of rolled out what our ideas and what we're going to propose early enough for audience comment, so it'd be available should you guys choose to come up and speak about it. But we're really looking at, it would be a lot of work coming together on next Monday, so not really any significant action. We're not passing things tonight, that type of thing. Again, I have to gauge my council colleagues' interest in proceeding with the ballot thing. But again, thanks to the administration, thanks to my fellow council members for allowing me to participate as council president, and we'll see where we get a little later this evening. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Mayor?
No, I think you've covered it very well.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Corman.
Can I just add, I did meet with Mr. Zwicker midweek, and I just want to thank you, Mr. Zwicker, for all the work you put in. I know you were really spending a lot of hours going over the options. I appreciated that you were really weighing the delay of the ballot issue with an eye towards making sure that the citizens were comfortable with the title of the ballot initiative and so forth. But I also respect the desire to get this done quickly. So I think in advance of audience comment, I would want people to recognize that that's the balance we're striking. That there's a lot of value in getting it done quickly, but just as you were alluding, you want to make sure that nobody second guesses whether it was written correctly. So it seemed like you were putting in every waking hour trying to get this right, and I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Corman.
Yep.
Okay, audience comment. We have a couple people signed up to address the council. When I call your name, please come to the podium, give your name and city of residence for the record, And you have 5 minutes. The timer's right next to the city clerk, Stuart Avery.
Stuart Avery, A-V-E-R-Y. I live in the Windsor Hills neighborhood in Renton. Mr. Mayor, council members, very encouraged. Thank you so much for spending a good part of last week, Council Member Zwicker, especially the time and energy that you've put in working on this. Some of the news articles that have come out over the last week have been encouraging. It's good to see and to hear that the council is taking the people's desires as seriously as they are. Mr. Mayor, especially last week, I want to commend you for the way you presided over the council meeting. You showed great restraint in view of the amount of people who were here, the subject matter. I know it's not common to have applause and things like that, and I just want to compliment you. The meeting went very well. I'm here just to talk about a couple of things. First of all, in view of the announcement that Councilperson Zwicker has made, I would just ask that all the council members, as you're talking about how to move forward, that you allow the people to participate in some level, or preferably at every level, at determining how a ballot measure might be worded. I would also ask that if a measure does come forward, that the information be made available in some form so that the people have an opportunity to see all of the information, the costs involved, pro or con. And I'd also ask that the city not act as an active lobbyist for one position or another, that this really become a people's ballot measure, so that we have an opportunity to lobby for votes as the opposition or the pro move people might want to lobby for votes, but that should be a citizen's effort and not one that's funded by city or funded by tax dollars for that matter. There are some signs that I've seen up around the city saying support the new library. I don't know how those have been funded, whether they've been permitted. I don't know if that's something that the city is involved with or not. It's not a political issue at this point, so I don't consider them political signs, but certainly the people who want to keep the library at the Cedar River location would want to have an opportunity to put up signage as well. So I just wanted to throw that out. Although I've heard that the continued position of the council is that the initiative petition is invalid or moot or not a matter of subject to talk about, but I do want to remind the council that the legality of the petition, the way it was worded, any of that really falls, on the ruling falls in the courts and not on the council. And I'll also remind the council that there is a 20-day period, and we're well within that. I would ask that you take as much of that time as you need in order to come to some sort of an agreement that we can move forward that will please the residents of our city. So I just want to thank you again for your time.
Thank you. And just for your information, I want you to know the signs that you're talking about are not city signs. And also in terms of the city itself getting involved in a campaign, we're prohibited by law to do that. So that would not be an issue.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Beth Escher.
Well, hello, City Council and Mayor Law. I'm really pleased that you're reconsidering things, and I want to say I do think that you guys were, very forbearing of the citizens last week because our passions were all high. My question was about the signs, whether they could be removed, because Section C9, prohibited signs and devices on a public right-of-way, says that unless they are city-sponsored or co-sponsored, they cannot be on a public right-of-way, which is where they are. And also, I had noticed a couple times driving by the Carco Park that flashes the same message, which made me wonder, who was sponsoring the message and where it was coming from. And I'm wondering if the city will be taking the signs down since they are on public right-of-way, or if they will be remaining, and where we stand on that. Because it's kind of not a tit-for-tat thing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Corman.
Can I ask that Carco Park, it's not the city's marquee there that's flashing it, is it? Is it one of the businesses? Is there
No, it was the one by the soccer field.
And what did it say?
It said the same thing.
I'd seen.
Well,
So I was kind of nonplussed. I went, whoa.
We'll have to look into that. That sounds pretty odd to me that would happen.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I've traveled out that way several times and have seen that sign, and I have not seen
Well,
anything about the library.
We control all the messaging on that board, so we can check that very easily.
That's what I thought, because it's all digital, right? Yeah. I go out to my girlfriend's all the time. We're working on her yard because trees fell in it, so I've been out there many times lately. Anyway, I just wondered if you would do something about the signs or allow the other group of citizens to put up signs also. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr.
Hey,
Corman.
I'd like to speak to the yard signs, because that's been an issue that I've seen change over the 18 years I've been on city council, and there's been some U.S. Supreme Court decisions that have affected that. But in general, when I first started on council, you were just forbidden from putting any sort of campaign signs on public right-of-ways, and the city would just pick them up and remove them. About 8 years ago or something like that, the U.S. Supreme Court came out with a ruling that that signs that weren't obstructing traffic or causing any other problem could be allowed during a campaign season, and that the city, in fact, had to allow them, that it was considered a public communication channel. This situation we're in right now is a little tricky because there was obviously, just as any of us that were here last week know, including yourself, it was very political. So, in effect, probably that could have arguably fallen under that Supreme Court ruling as a different type of a campaign, but people were trying to get the council to take certain actions. But I guess I'd like to say that to me it seems like the appropriate thing to do is given that this week we are talking about going forward with a ballot initiative. It probably would be ideal if everybody sort of, stockpiled their signs and then complied with, I think our city has regulations that we encourage people to keep them just during a certain window during an official campaign. Right. And, I'm not going to fault anybody for having put signs out to get to this point. There was, emotions were high, there was a lot of public debate going on, but I think if we can get moving forward with this, the right thing to do would be for everybody to hold the signs back until we get to within a couple months or 3 months of election day, put them out, and then everybody's required to take them down 24 hours after the election or something like that.
Yeah. As soon as it's announced that it goes on the ballot, then essentially the campaign has begun?
I think so. I'm trying to remember if we have official timeline. I think that's true. And actually, this will be a short campaign season, too. Part of the trade-off with having a quick ballot initiative is that, the campaigns involved on both sides are going to have to act fast to get word out. And I would hope personally that there would be a lot of campaign activity on both sides so that the public had a lot of information to work with.
Well, since those signs are already out there, would we be faulted for jumping the gun also?
I don't think so.
So, Netta, did you want to weigh in on that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, once the word is that there will in fact be a ballot measure, I think that the courts would determine that the campaign is on. So once, I don't anticipate that it's coming tonight, but next Monday night, if in fact this council decides to go forward with a ballot title, a resolution that we would then bring forward on the 23rd, but if the decision is made next week, the 16th, that yes, it is on, then the campaign is on. And I would say that we would not enforce any kind of take down your signs type of ordinance once that campaign is on.
Okay?
I think that's where the courts would go.
That's good.
Right.
And then, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Carmen.
If I could add, because there may be a lot of people involved in these campaigns that aren't involved in the normal city council campaigns or whatever. Signs, if signs are put out there for months, what people often don't realize is when we have a sign location and we put a sign there and people drive by it every day, they don't realize that that sign may have got destroyed 10 times and replaced by mowing equipment or wind or whatever. Just be aware that when that happens, I'd ask the public not to jump to the conclusion that it's the other side that's taking the sign away. It can be so many different things that can make a sign go away. So just be aware, early signs will disappear. Sometimes it's, I think it'll just be 12-year-old kids on their way home from school that want to hit each other with a sign. We'll pull it up or something. But
I can well believe.
So, yeah, because it'll be a long duration sign campaign. But I don't blame anybody for doing it, and get people. That'll get people interested in the election. That's what signs will do.
And hopefully they'll come out and vote. That is
Right.
the thing. Let them all come
Get
out.
as many people as possible
Yes.
to have their voice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Phyllis Forrester.
Phyllis Forrester, Renton, Washington. The signage of these signs says support the downtown library. And according to all city information and maps, the Cedar River Library is the downtown library. So that is a misnomer in that sign. Now, I think that a banner should be put on the Big 5 building that says, this is the site that is proposed by the city and KCLS for the new library. Because that helps put that in perspective as what downtown means, because we already have a downtown library and it's only 4 blocks away. And the reaction will be to that banner, I feel quite certain, is what we always have heard since last April. What? Why would they want to put a library here or there? So if this is going to continue, I really do think there has to be truth in advertising as to where the Big 5 building is and where this library is being planned. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just thinking that this is exactly why the city is not in the campaign business.
Excuse me, what did that mean?
We didn't put the signs up.
I realize that, but we have to face that. We as the citizens, when those signs came up and said downtown library, I said, well, wait a minute, we have a downtown library.
Yeah.
So those signs are incorrect. And there is, I know when I ran for office, there's a very tight timeline on when you can have signs up and when you can't have signs up. So I think we need to observe that just the same way we would observe it for any political,
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, and Ms. Forrester touches on another item, which I think probably Mr. Zwicker has laid out, and we'll talk about more later, but you're actually touching on the ballot wording effectively, the issue that we're going to have to face on the ballot wording. In as much as we may go to ballot, I think some of the concepts that I think I was talking to Mr. Zwicker about might be that the ballot might just read that there are 2 alternative locations for a library in downtown. And I'm not sure if we would refer to one of them as the proposed location versus the existing location, or if we would just refer to them as alternate number 1 and alternate number 2. And so, maybe if the location, the Big 5 location, was identified, I might not call it the proposed location so much as alternative, 1 location. Because we don't want to bias the decision by having a preference. However, that's all got to come out in the next 2 weeks. We got to agree on all those terms.
Well, you know, it's that very thing
Yeah.
that's got us into this whole mess to begin with. It was KCLS annexation, yes, no, but with blah, blah, blah over here.
Yeah,
So we have to be very careful.
understood.
Do
And-
you want to move the Cedar River Library?
Right,
It's yes, no,
yeah.
boom.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to get into the blah, blah again.
Yeah, and if I may just add that, I mean, in effect, we're going to have an improved downtown library, whether it's at either of those locations when we're
Exactly.
done. So we just, yeah, the wording will have to be carefully sorted out so that everybody understands. And to your point, they need to, when they go to vote, they need to clearly understand that one alternative is the Big Five site, and that the
Yes.
other alternative is the existing
To
site.
keep it where it
Yeah.
Randy,
Will
if
there
I
be
may.
anybody involved in this as a public, or
Mr.
is it just
Zucker?
going to be you?
Yeah, it'd be all
No,
of
it's,
us.
so Randy, you're getting a little ahead of things. If you would, I'm going to get the orchestra ready to start playing up the music, you know, when I cut you off, as you were saying earlier. We're not there yet. We haven't even decided as a council
Right.
if we're heading in that direction. So to start talking proposed ballot language and that type of stuff's a little premature. That's part of ideally what we'll be doing next week when we get the administration. We don't have that stuff there. We've been working. We tried to put together as much as we could to roll something out, and we're just not there. So the key is right now is I think I'm gonna need to gauge where you guys want to be with it, and then we'll go from there.
So
Thank you.
you won't have any public involved in that decision-making? It'll just be the council?
We don't know.
Right here.
What he just said, he doesn't know yet what's going to happen with that, so. Okay, and I just got a note from staff saying that there's absolutely no sign about the library on our Carco sign, so. Just to clear that up. All right, next is the consent agenda. We have 3 items for council consideration. Are there any items the council member would like pulled for discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Zwicker.
hearing none, I move the council concur with the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Zwicker, seconded by Ms. Breyer. The council concur with the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Unfinished business, Mr. Zwicker.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Ms. Breyer?
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Prince?
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Person?
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Palmer?
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Corman?
No unfinished business, Mr.
We
Mayor.
haven't been a busy bunch this week. Mr. Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Utilities Committee has a committee report.
Utilities Committee Report, Leak Adjustment Policy. The Utilities Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to modify the water billing adjustment for water leak and wastewater billing adjustment for water leak sections of City Code to clarify eligibility, adjust for leaked water only, and clarify the water adjustment process. The committee further directs staff to prepare an ordinance to amend Section 8446 of Chapter 4 Water and Section 8523 of Chapter 5 Sewers of City Code, and recommends that the ordinance be presented for first reading. This is signed by the 3 committee members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Taylor?
I move the council concur with the Utilities committee report.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Corman. The council concur with the Utilities Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, moving on to resolutions and ordinances. We have 1 resolution and we have 1 ordinance for second and final reading.
The first is the resolution regards waiving an admissions tax. A resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, waiving the admissions tax for the Seattle International Film Festival.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Zwicker.
move the council adopt the resolution as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Zwicker, seconded by Ms. Breyer, that council adopt the resolution as read. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The ordinance for second and final reading regards the carry-forward budget amendment. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending the City of Renton fiscal years 2011 through 2012 biennial budget as adopted by ordinance number 5583 and thereafter amended in the amount of $37,139,384.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
I
Zwicker.
move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Zwicker, seconded by Ms. Breyer, that this ordinance be adopted as read. It requires a roll call.
Mr. Zwicker?
Aye.
Ms. Breyer?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Next is new business, Mr. Zwicker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of items. First of all, the Committee of the Whole will meet on April 16th, 2012, which is a Monday at 5:30 p.m. here in the council chambers. One topic of discussion on that, and that's the Liberty Park Library Building Steering Committee recommendations. Second item is the as promised item, is the potential of discussion regarding placing on the ballot the library location. I'm not certain I need to or want to necessarily make a motion at this time. I think I could just as simply say I'd like to offer it up to my council colleagues for discussion.
Okay, it's open for discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Corman?
Well, first item I wonder about is simply a point of order item. I think under Robert's rules, anybody that voted in the prevailing side last week could bring an issue back up for reconsideration. The Robert's rules say that can only be on the next regular council meeting. So what I don't want to do is if you don't do that formally, I don't want to bar us doing that under Robert's rules later. So I don't know if that's necessary or, I mean, in effect, I think maybe you're not offering just simply a revision of last week's decision either. It may be, I guess I just want to make sure that a point of order doesn't mess up our plans.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm not hearing a motion for reconsideration, which you are correct. If in fact it were a motion for reconsideration, it would have to be brought up by a member who voted with the prevailing side, and it would have to be at this meeting. But what I think I'm hearing is a whole new approach to try to maybe meet the spirit of what's transpired. Without having to actually seek a reconsideration, because that's not the issue on the table. Actually, there's nothing on the table technically, because there's no pending motion. But rather, it's a new approach to try to meet the spirit of what some members of the public want.
And okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Corman.
I wonder if that's the case. I wonder if Mr. Zwicker would be willing to make a motion to the effect of exploring alternative options, just to make sure that we've nailed down this Robert's Rules of Order question.
A motion to reconsider?
Not a motion to reconsider, but a motion.
I have no interest in doing a motion to reconsider. I stand behind my decision last Monday night on the validity of the initiative. Did you want me to open up a motion for discussion?
Yes, that's where I was going.
Okay, so I would move that the council direct the administration to prepare for next Monday, April 16th, to present at a public meeting during the regular council meeting the issues regarding the proposed ballot, which would include, including but not limited to, the discussion of the ballot title, the cost associated with the new location, the ballot title and resulting explanatory statements and supporting text required by King County elections that's due by April 25th. And I think that would be my motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by
Mayor?
Mr. Can I get the motion on the floor?
Okay.
It's been moved by Mr. Zwicker, seconded by Mr. Corman, that the administration be directed to prepare documentation that deals with the issues of bringing a ballot proposal for council consideration with possible title and name, copy information associated with it, and whatever else Mr. Zwicker happens to say.
Anything else we want?
Mr. Person.
I just want to clarify, we're going to do it at a public meeting. It's going to be a public meeting during the council meeting. It's not during the committee of the whole.
Exactly. So the intention would be, it would be a public meeting, so audience comment, open discussion amongst all of us. So it'd be, 7:05 type thing after 7 p.m. With the resulting agenda being published on Thursday and all supporting documents and proposed ballot and all of that type of stuff rolling out then would be our goal.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
I just want our public to be aware of the options that we're presenting to them. And so what I'd like to do is just take a step back, because in essence what we're talking about doing, and my spirit here is, I want whatever our residents want, but I want them to understand the choices that are before them and what their options are. And one of the things that I didn't hear any a discussion about is, and I want to just spend a moment on it, is that we've in essence said that the petition, we're not going to recognize it. And because we're not going to recognize it, we're going to not honor the requirements of the petition, which is you either adopt it or you send it to the voters. And if you send it to the vote, that election has to be a special election that takes place in, I believe, 45 days. Okay, so now we're talking about an election that, we're 2 weeks out, and we're talking about August the, what was that date, the 7th. We're talking about 90-plus days out or so for an election. Now, what I learned when I did my research on the previous effort that we had this initiative process that our residents brought before us, is that there was a special election that was scheduled to take place in a short window, but somehow since we were so new to this, based on the minutes that I read, we missed that date. We didn't file some paperwork, and the election, instead of taking place in August, it ended up taking place in November, which created a longer track. And my concern is that, these folks have done a lot of work, generated a lot of momentum, and the reason I would suspect, and I did call King County Elections, I tried to get some answers from them in terms of, how did you come up with the 15% formula, and and why are we talking 45 days and instead of a longer period of time. I didn't get all the answers that I wanted, but I would believe that the idea is that you get it on the ballot as quickly as possible to give the voters an opportunity to capitalize on the work that they've done, as opposed to put it far out, giving the opposition a longer track to create a marketing campaign. And ironically, what happened during that last initiative is that the proponent initially came with a sufficient initiative that was certified by King County, had the number of signatures, but was defeated at the ballot almost 2-1, 9,900 votes to something like 5,500 votes. So, however, I'm at the beck and call of my residents. Whatever they want to do, I'm going to support that. But I want them to be aware of the options, that if for some reason we, decide that, we're not going to honor their, and then I'm sure that if we did take this direction that we're going in, their right to all of the remedies that go along with that, initiative, they would forfeit that because they would have agreed to the process that we're going to go with in terms of coming up with a different ballot, and putting it on on a different ballot that we're going to have an election for in August. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention to everybody, because in my mind, I still, I'm not real clear if everyone is settled on the idea that the initiative petition is being viewed by the city as not valid, and that therefore, we're going to come up with a different option. And if everybody's okay with that, I'm fine with it. I just want to make sure that they understand, clearly, what direction we would be going in and what the consequences of, or, benefits. There could be benefits, what those options are going to be. I believe that at this point in time, what we don't want to miss an opportunity of full disclosure, complete transparency, and we put all of the options out there on the table, so that everybody clearly understands what we're doing. And that includes, some of the language questions we're going to get into if we go down this path.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Prince.
So
two things, and one of them is directed towards Jay. But the one thing I did want to say was, in reference to the initiative last week, I believe this body has spoken, and I think that at some point we need to move past that. My question for Jay was, dealing with King County elections, what is the cost differential for a special election versus a regularly scheduled election? I know that there has to be a bit of a price break when there are multiple things on the ballot as opposed to there being just one item on the ballot.
Well, it is a little dynamic. It depends on a number of factors. Let me first, if I may, I think address Councilman Taylor's comment. As far as we know, we've checked with King County elections. The next soonest time we could get any item on the ballot is the August 7th primary. There is no special election date that we could use in between now and August. So that regardless of whether this was by petition or by any other case, the first time it could go to the voters would be August 7th. We'll double check that for the third time, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. As to the cost of an election, Bonnie and I were just talking about that earlier. The last time actually the February 2010 election, that was the library annexation, was around 90,000-ish. And the cost of our election at the last November's general election was about 88,000. So you're probably at 90,000 plus or minus 10. It depends on who else may participate in a voter's pamphlet, a voter's guide, what other items might be on the ballot. But by and large, the cost of an election for the city is going to be around 90,000 plus or minus.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
So Jay, am I understanding this correctly, that let's just say that we did adopt, that we recognize the validity of the petition from the proponents of the initiative, and we made a decision to send it to the voters. Is what you're telling me that we would not be able to put it on the ballot in 45 days from that decision? Correct. We would not be able to do that? Correct. Okay.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Corman.
Yeah, to me it seems like from everything I've heard from discussion with you, Mr. Mayor, and from Council President Zwicker, it seems like it's everybody's intention that this go to the voters to decide, and I'm grateful. I think that, whether or not the petition would have driven a binding decision, but also had, issues that might have had to get resolved by the court, versus us taking an advisory vote and then taking a council action based on that. I think the citizens do deserve confidence that if we go forward with the election, that we will treat their decision as our decision. But I think we could handle that by just passing a resolution, or making that some whereases when we actually put this thing to the ballot. At least, understanding that if it's an advisory vote and we've passed a resolution saying we want to put this to the citizens, there's still a chance a council member could, for some reason, not honor it, perhaps if they felt that the election hadn't been done correctly or something. But I think it would be very politically risky for anybody to not honor it at that point. So. And certainly that approach, making an advisory with the resolution that says we're going to listen to that, gives us the latitude to make sure it's worded in a way that's compatible with all the contracts, that is implementable, and is meaningful. And to me, the ultimate would be if we could go down that path and get a consensus, perhaps the person who organized the petition drive to agree that that's a suitable approach. I think we can move forward.
And Mr. Mayor?
Zanetta, did you want to weigh in on that?
When they're done, I just wanted to give them background information so that before they vote.
Oh, okay. Ms. Mayor?
Yes, are we going to have sufficient time then to do all of the background information, the money from one thing to the other, so that it'll be transparent to the voters?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I thought I was going to wait, but maybe I won't.
Okay.
Let me, if I may, lay out a little bit procedurally what we've looked at in the past few days. In terms of a procedure, we would come forward next week with written documentation that I want to address here in a minute. Written documentation there would be discussion here and hopefully direction to prepare a resolution that would adopt a ballot title, and then that's what gets sent to King County. That's what has to get into King County's hands by the 25th. So procedurally, that's what's going to come out of, at the latest, we're hoping, the 23rd. Okay, so that's perhaps a different resolution than the one to which Mr. Corman was speaking a moment ago. At the end of that procedure, however, the binding versus non-binding nature of the vote will, I'm hoping, become self-evident from the discussion. I mean, that's where I think we all want to be. So that I don't think is necessarily a too ambitious of a goal in that regard. The timing might be ambitious, but I think that is a goal. In speaking with Mr. Zwicker and speaking with the mayor and knowing what efforts my office has made, I think it's realistic. Let me put it that way. The ballot title, just so that you know, the ballot title is something that has to be prepared by mandate, by state law, has to be prepared by the city attorney. In Larry's absence, I've been working on that. That is going to have to be due with the resolution. That is what has to get into the hands of King County on the 25th. In addition to that, however, and that is a much shorter statement, in addition to that, there is yet another statement that is to be prepared, and the deadline for that is May 15. So we have a little bit more time, and that's an explanatory statement. So when we're preparing the explanatory statement, we certainly have more time to make sure that we are getting input, hearing things from people who have things to say, on whichever side it is, so that the explanatory statement is as clear as possible for the voters, so that they really understand what the nature of the vote is. And so far, what we've been working on is trying to come up with language that makes it clear that they're choosing between two sites: the site over the river and the site that's west of the piazza. And we're, of course, trying to not put one before the other and make one sound better than the other or any of that. I mean, we're just trying to be very factual about it. I hope that at least helps some groundwork, some procedural groundwork for you, and I hope that to the degree I was able, answers Mr. Corman's question.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'll respond directly to Councilwoman Breyer's question. I think the question was, do you think that staff can get the numbers and some of the background information? We have been working, obviously, on 2 tracks as we've been moving along. As the council knows, last May we had a lot of work done, and that helped us define a cost estimate for the site that's west of the piazza, the Big 5 site. We also, as you know, as part of this particular proposal, the plan was to continue to have the building over the Cedar River in public ownership, and so there's been work that has continued to progress on defining what it would take to develop that building. At the time that, backing up a little bit, at the time that the council was still trying to determine which of the option in the downtown sites would be the most optimal before selecting the one that they did. We had several independent firms help us that are very experienced in library development and in rehabilitation, and so it's from that information we want to update that. Refine it a little bit, but we think we can have good numbers for you to look at by next week.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
One of the other things, and I like everything that I'm hearing. I guess I should have started off by saying that I'm a firm believer that we ought to always be willing to take a look at our decisions, get new information, and make some new, different decisions. And I'm thrilled that we're moving in this direction. I would like to suggest that as we are making this effort, taking this walk, in the spirit of understanding what our residents would like to see us do, that we enlist someone from that petitioners group to be involved in some of those conversations that are going to take place over the next week about wording, maybe some shared briefing on some of the information that you're discovering about renovations. Make it transparent. Get some of these people involved so that they understand exactly how did we get from here to here, and they can understand it, take some ownership, and have some involvement in it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Palmer.
I want to start by saying thank you to you, to Jay, the city attorney's office, and especially Council President Zwicker for working really hard since last Monday night. I know that a lot of other things have just had to be put to the side, and I really want to thank you for that. And thank you, Zanetta, for just clarifying that. I just want to make sure I have this correct, that next week we would make the decision, have the resolution the following week, April 23rd, I believe you said, but the explanatory statement doesn't have to be to King County elections until May 15th. That makes it it still seems daunting, but more doable than when I was thinking we were going to have the whole kit and caboodle 2 weeks from tonight. So,
Marcy, if I could interject just a little bit. We're going to hear about it next week.
Right.
So I don't want to say that's our decision. Our decision, really, because we're going to get a lot of information next week, the decision has to be made on the 23rd. So as you know, I've been try not to make the same decisions the night we're hearing stuff. So I don't want to make everybody think that the decision could happen next week, but really the goal for me is the 23rd, is that Monday. So we still have that extra week to digest, answer questions, and that type of thing.
okay. And maybe, Bonnie, you can clarify with me. I know that the city is saying that the initiative is dead, but what does King County Elections Office say about that petition that we had 20 days from the day the city was notified for the citizens?
20 days from the date that it is presented to council.
For the council to take action?
Correct.
Okay. And do you know what date that is? Just out of curiosity.
That would have been up the 22nd, so technically you would need to make a decision at a regular meeting, would have to be on the 16th.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
if I
Carver.
remember correctly, the RCW said if we didn't take action, it said then any taxpayer could take that petition forward to the court and work with the court to get it placed on the ballot. I would think during that time frame that a taxpayer might do that. We will have this pretty much wrapped up and have something going to the ballot. They will not necessarily lose that opportunity, but if we're going to the ballot with this type of advisory vote, I think the court would say, hey, what are you talking about? The city's doing what the thing says.
Randy, if I may, so number one, I get very concerned about us discussing what the rights of the citizens are, especially timing-wise, because I don't think any of us are, especially up here on the dais, can tell them what their timing was. I mean, my guess would be is I don't think they're barred. We're the 20-day
Right.
clock.
That's what I'm saying, is I don't think they're barred.
And I also, it's not a term that we've been using, and I'm not saying your term is wrong, but I think an advisory vote is a term of art, and I'm not positive. That's just not a term we've used. I'm anticipating it's a ballot that makes the decision, as opposed to it's just something we consult. So I mean, also, it's, and I think it's a term of art. And, sorry, so I just want to make sure I'm not.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Carver.
Yeah, I'd like to be on record. If there is a way to make it a binding vote, I'd far prefer that to be a binding vote. So thank you for correcting me. I didn't intend to say
No, I'm
that it
just,
was-
We haven't
we've
had
been,
that discussion?
we've been working all the time to try to have something we could have presented tonight, and we just couldn't come up with it. So we need those extra 3 days to get things rolled out. We really do.
Good.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Does anybody need Jason to reread the motion? I think it was pretty cut and dry that we're going to provide all this information.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The only thing that was concerning me was that Mr. Zwicker included in the motion the bringing forward of the explanatory statement next week, and I would ask that not be part of what we have to bring forward next week.
Correct. I definitely did not want, and so let's be perfectly clear. There is there's statutory amounts of words you can use for all this stuff. It's all very set out. There's the very top thing, that top sentence. What is that called?
There is the subject matter sentence.
That is the subject matter sentence, and then
And
the
that's
actual
10
thing
and
that you
that's
would
10
read and
words.
vote on is the
Okay, then there's the subject matter sentence. There is the concise description, which is 75 words and has to be drafted by my office.
And that needs to be done and finalized and
That's
forwarded to King County.
That's what has to be given to King County by April 23rd.
Subject matter statement and concise statement is
And-
what needs to be done. The explanatory statement is done the 15th.
On the 15th.
So I make a friendly amendment to change the language from explanatory statement to,
So the only thing we're going to come forward with next week, if I think I know where you're going.
you know where I'm going.
We're going to come forward with the subject matter statement, the concise description, and the question to be posed
Thank you.
on the ballot.
As a seconder, I agree with the friendly amendment.
Okay, is everybody on board? All those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business, Mr. Zwicker.
I just did my new business and I'm done.
Oh, you are, that's right.
Yep.
Ms.
My
Breyer.
turn. Yes, Finance Committee will meet next Monday from 4 to, actually, are we moving it up, Don? Finance Committee, 3:30?
Could we do that?
Yeah, 3:30 to 4:30. We have two items, vouchers and the Riverview Park pedestrian bridge and habitat project.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Prince.
Yes, we have a Planning and Development Committee meeting this Thursday, April 12th, 4 o'clock in the council chambers. And we'll be hearing the May Creek drainage appeal.
Okay. Mr. Person?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Public Safety Committee will meet next Monday on the 16th at 4:30 with one topic, and it's the Liquor Control Board concerns, and we will have members of the Liquor Control Board there. And since we're changing the time, hopefully Julia's listening so she can let the police chief know that we need him there at 4:30.
Deputy Chief's here, so he'll let him know.
We're going to
Okay, Ms. Palmer.
No new business. I just want to clarify, it's going to be an hour meeting then? The
Yeah,
public safety
I don't
be-
think we could get through it in a half
Okay,
hour.
great. So it'll be 4:30 to 5:30 for public
Right.
safety. Okay, and I have no new business.
Okay, Mr. Corman.
Just announcing that we'll be canceling the transportation meeting otherwise scheduled for April 12th, so it's canceled.
All day.
And Mr. Taylor.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next is audience comment. Anybody who did not have a chance to address the council, that would like to address the council?
Mark Martinez. I live in the Renton Highlands. I want to say thanks a lot. I'm sorry I was late. I was doing my mom's taxes, and that's what you do when you're an accountant. You do your mom's taxes. Do 2 tax returns a year, mine and my mom's. I want to say thanks a lot. I think you guys did a really great job. It really it gives me a sense of confidence that I feel like my government is really working for me when I hear you guys talking the way you were, at least since I came in. So I'm really grateful and thankful that you all that you had this conversation. Again, the accountant in me is coming out. I really would like to see the true cost of what it's going to cost to redo the library and repurpose this building, the library building. I think repurposing the building is going to be a significant cost, regardless if the library is built there or at a different location. And I would like to see that included in any detailed explanation of what on the ballot on the total true cost of it. So I just wanted to say thanks. I think you guys are definitely on the right track, and it just like I said last time, people want to feel good about their government and that their government is working for them, and I think the conversations here tonight really kind of work towards that. So I know we gave you a lashing last time, so I want to let you know I think you guys are doing a good job. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hello to the council members. I'm Beatrice Clark, C-L-A-R-K. I was here a couple of weeks ago, and I made a request regarding a public records request that I had put forth to the Renton City Clerk. And when the minutes came out, and I read the minutes, and I thought they had made an error, and I said, these minutes are fatally flawed. So I sent a letter of correction to the city clerk, and she in turn sent me a letter letting me know that what was in the minutes was actually what I had said, but it was transposed from what I meant. So she said they were listening to the audio and so on and so on. I said, well, you don't really need to do all that. I'll just come back and do a do-over. So I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight to make that correction. On February 16th, I made a request to the city clerk for correspondence from King County Library Systems regarding correspondence that had been sent here regarding me. And one of them related to an email that was sent here on February 9th. And it was sent by King County Library staff. And I requested that information. And when I received the information, I received a letter that had been sent to the Renton City Council from King County Library System, the people you all are doing business with. And that email stated that I, Beatrice Clark, forwarded to the Renton City Council an email purportedly from the director. Please be advised that the director denies sending the email and is believed that Ms. Clark sent it in a way that made it appear that it came from the director. A suit has been filed to prevent Ms. Clark from continuing to send such emails and to seek damages. We ask that given these circumstances, the email not be circulated. So that is in reference to an email that I sent. And of course, I was perturbed, and maybe the question I put forth could be considered rhetorical. What authority do they have to send emails here to quash my emails? We're talking about an organization that's doing multi-million-dollar businesses with the city, building new libraries, and they want to take one citizen and say that citizen's mail is not as important as theirs. So that is of concern to me, and I requested information on how the input of mail flowed once it came into the city council chambers or to their office. And I did get a letter back from Councilman Zwicker, but the letter, it said it was dealt with through RCWs and through the court, but it wasn't specific. And so that's why I came back and made the second request. In the meantime, just before I left home, I checked my emails and I see that I have Bunny Walsh, and the city clerk has sent me probably a booklet on Freedom of Information or Public Disclosure Acts. And when I get a chance, I will go through that. But I'm just here because I took great offense at the fact that the King County Library would feel that they can quash one citizen. Dr. King said an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So if they can be unjust with me, we better be very careful as to how we move forward with them as we deal with multi-millions of dollars and contracts and all kinds of very high-profile correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave McCammon, City of Renton. I've got a couple things. First of all, the first one I think has already been well discussed in that, but I want to throw out a counterpoint. The signs that were out there for the new library were designed and printed up by a private party. I believe the city would have nothing to do with it except for those that are sitting on right-of-way. Private property can be done themselves. The other side of that is both sides, especially the petition one, has gotten out with news and quite a bit. So I would say that the council, I would ask that you just wash, which like I said, sounds like what it is anyway. The other thing is I would like to support, even though it's a lot of work on all of you, the fast election, because the fact that that will allow people to get out the actual without hopefully adding to the truth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Audrey Adams, City of Renton resident. And I just want to say, I came last week. I was going to talk about something else, but I got upstaged. I got upstaged big time. And I'm not going to speak about it tonight because you guys have big stuff on your hands. I just wanted to say, I've been thinking for a whole week, oh my God, I don't want this divorce. I came with no knowledge ahead of time. I'd never been approached with the petition or anything. I had, blank slate. And so I heard everybody, heard all of what you said, heard all of the people, and everybody had such valid cases. And I just want to say thank you so much for avoiding this divorce, because that's kind of what it felt like, because it was, everybody wanted the best for Renton. We just had different opinions about what was the best thing to do. And I was probably one of the few people that didn't have a favored whether you voted yay or nay last week. I didn't, because I know that every single one of you were voting what you thought was the best thing for Renton and Renton citizens. I just want to say thank you so much. You came up with a brilliant plan. I don't know that I've ever seen a body like this react so responsively to the public, and I'm just a bystander. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Ms. Adams, you've caused rampant speculation on what it is you're going to talk to us about. And so I do have to say, because we actually have somebody here, and again, there's like a little pool going in the back and betting on what it's going to be. And if for some reason it should be an all-inclusive playground discussing, I really need you to talk to Terry Higashiyama in the back. If it's anything along those lines, you really do need to talk to her tonight. Okay, I tried.
All right.
I lost the pool.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, there's no bounties with that, are there?
No.
Just checking.
Stuart Avery, A-V-E-R-Y. Thank you for allowing me to speak one last time. I applaud you all for the effort last week. Real good to be here tonight, hear the kind of talk that we're listening to. I do want to volunteer myself as that person that you might want to reach out to on the petitioning body, as somebody to talk to about the wording of the possible ballot measure that's coming forward. As a Renton resident for 17 years, I care deeply, like a lot of, like everybody in this room cares about our city. We're not the anti-group. We've never been the anti-group. We're very pro-Renton. We're very pro-downtown business, very pro-retailers. We want, like everybody here, nothing but the best for our beloved city. We want to see people lining up to get into the city, both on the retail end and as residents. It's a great place to live. So I would just throw my name out there as somebody to reach out to talk to about the work that you have to do moving forward. I would also ask that the city consider, when we talk about the costs moving forward, so the residents do have an opportunity to see what that is, that we look at those costs as if the city had adopted both possible locations as ones that they preferred, so that we can look at doing it, both locations, within the budget constraints that you have to work within, and also honoring the commitments that the citizens have made in annexing to King County Library Systems. I believe it can be done. I know that in the business world, numbers can be moved around and bids can be renegotiated and newer bids can come in, and the spirit of the people's work, I just want that to be kind of the overriding, prevailing theme as we move forward. And I just want to throw that out to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Crum.
I hate to belabor this any longer, and I'm very appreciative of all the actions of the administration. I just want to have a chance to say one more thing before you go and embark on another week of this, and this is the only public opportunity to speak with you and the other council members at the same time. So I want to clarify earlier comment. I don't want anybody to have taken offense. I want to be sure it's really clear what the council understands. But when I had made the comment, I'd prefer a binding vote, I want to clarify, I actually trust this council very much to do whatever the vote says. So that wasn't it at all. However, democracy's messy. Any campaign I've ever been involved in, I always feel like there were things that went wrong from the other side, that they did things that weren't right, and it's going to be that way. If we go out to the public vote, both sides are going to feel like, oh, the other side said stuff that wasn't right. Maybe they put the signs in the wrong place or one thing or another. And the reason I'm interested in a binding vote is I don't want it to come back to another debate in this forum, only to hear all those things voiced. I mean, I think if we go to an election, we really need to recognize, both sides need to recognize we are going to the election. The rules of campaigning will play out. If either side doesn't like something that's happening, they need to contact the PDC. They probably won't get the relief they like in the time frame. That's too bad. But what we don't want to do is be refereeing it or Monday morning quarterbacking it here on council. So we just need the public to understand that's the one chance. And if we're lucky, it'll end in a landslide one way or the other. And then everybody will go, okay, peace. But the way things have been going, it'll end with like an 8-vote margin or something. And we don't want to have it come back here. So that's what I meant by that comment.
Okay.
My name is Kathleen Ozenkop. I've been a resident of Renton. My name is Kathleen Ozenkop. I've been a resident of Renton for over 40 years, and I did write to one of the council members that this certainly was a different meeting last week compared to when I came when Mr. Stredeke was a member of the council. And I would like to say that in our creative environment here in this part of Washington, we have university architectural schools, and we have great resources at our backyard. And last week it seemed like we were trying to save the Pike Place Market of Renton, which has been our beloved city library over the river. And the city of Seattle, actually the market group helped fund the shortfalls that the city couldn't provide. And so I hope that you'll consider that the people who want to keep the library at the Liberty Park setting will have some maybe additional funding options that we have if the city does have a shortfall. And certainly we could maybe use the opportunity that the market used, such as selling tiles. Memory tiles are now a very common method of getting extra funding for communities to keep beloved properties that are maybe causing additional expenses that the city doesn't have money for. So if there is a money issue, please discuss the issue with the Preserve the Library over the River folks, so that maybe we can come up with some ideas to help meet any financial shortfall. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is David Beeden. I have lived in Renton for 30 years. My last name is Beedon. 3 things. First, I want to thank you for the action you've taken since last council meeting. It's a very heartening, pleasant thing to see the city administration work for its citizens. One minor complaint I have regards a statement that a city spokesman made recently, and I can't quote, but it sounded like the petition is basically dead, but the spirit is alive. Well, legally, I don't think the petition is dead, and I would ask the city council, the city administration, to have spokespersons refrain from saying things like that because it's misleading. As far as I know, with my very limited understanding of the law involved, the petition is valid until the courts say it isn't, and that it's not dead until I don't know what makes it dead or what cancels it or revokes it. I have the feeling that what you're planning to do in the next 2 weeks will accomplish that, but until that happens, I'd appreciate if city personnel would not use the phrase dead or anything like it to describe the petition. And the last thing I have is a question. I'm confused about this binding vote versus non-binding vote. Can somebody explain that to me?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Carmen.
Well, since I've created the confusion, perhaps, it may be fair that I speak to it. I just had it in my mind that for some reason, if council, I know that if the citizens petition went forward, that it would go to the ballot, and then at least my understanding was then that decision would be made through a citizens lawmaking process, but would then be subject to the various challenges that were described by other council members last week. You know, could it hold up under contract law and other things like that? I came in here thinking, okay, well, we're departing from the specific wording on that petition, and I was thinking that we were in fact putting something on the ballot that was then going to tell us the spirit of the community, so that we as a council could then basically do the other thing that's allowed under the petition, which is the council can adopt an ordinance which accomplishes the same thing as the petition. And I was thinking we would be gathering an advisory vote which would accomplish it. Actually, just to be more specific, I didn't just pure make that up. The city of Mukilteo actually did that when a red light camera petition was circulated, which was later found by the courts to not be binding, but they went forward with an advisory vote, got the spirit of the community, and then as a council decided not to have red light cameras anymore. So that was sort of the background I'd read about. But then Mr. Zwicker correctly called me on it, and he's going, well, why are you jumping to having an advisory vote? Maybe there's a binding vote that's possible. The difference in the two would be, if it was advisory, it would just be the community telling us, you know, at the ballot, whether they, you know, which site they preferred, the majority preferred. A binding vote would actually be one that would just go on the records as a sort of an ordinance that would actually determine it. And I don't know the legalities of both. Both of them should get us to the same place, but one of them might leave a belief on the part of the public that they could come make a final appeal to us, and that's what I was saying. I prefer not to have people think that, because it, you know, it probably wouldn't be so.
When I hear the term advisory vote, I get nervous. It almost sounds like a loophole for the city to ignore what the voters are telling them.
And I would just like to say that it may sound that way, and it may be that way. It's certainly not the intent. And when I use those words, I didn't mean it as the intent, and I don't think any council member would. And you know, so I understand your anxiety about that. That's why I'd like it to be binding also. So. Well,
if you say you'd like it to be binding, that tells me there's not a decision yet to make it binding. And if that's the case, how does that decision get made?
I just don't know if we can do it legally.
No decision's been made yet.
Yeah, it happens next week.
Yeah.
Or the week after.
Well, I'm still a little confused. It sounds like next week it still could happen that the city council treats this whole matter as an advisory thing. And if that's the case, what's the point of the petition?
Well, if I may, since I kind of got us into this mess, and I think the public knows where I stand on this. I would really like for the public to be able to decide this issue, and I'm also the one that said advisory. So, and you know, I didn't mean it. What I really meant was it's the legality of can we legally create an election that finalizes the decision, or is there a council action after the election that puts the decision into the record? And if we can somehow do it where the election in itself is a state recognized lawmaking procedure, then that's preferred. The other course, which this council, I can tell the spirit of this council is they want the citizens to decide it. The other course might leave something where we have to do something to put it in the record. And that I called advisory, but that was a bad choice of terms, because that's, you know, I was just latching on to the Mukilteo case. In the preferred case, once the election's certified, all the actions are done. And there's, you know, in the other case, once the election's certified, the council has to take some final actions to make it so. But again, I have no reason to believe that that's not the spirit of everybody on this council. Although I'm just speaking for myself.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I don't know that I will assuage your fears, but what we've been working on so far is not an effort to seek an advisory opinion from the voters. That has not been my charge from the mayor.
Okay.
And so I have not been I've been trying to work at drafting a fair, what I'm legally required to do under the law is to come up with a fair and impartial statement of the measure. I have 75 words to do it. And I have not, as I indicate, the direction I've gotten from the mayor has not been to aim for an advisory opinion, but rather which location do you choose kind of decision. Over the river or west of the piazza? And so until we actually have something upon which this body opines, which might be next week and could be as late as the 23rd, I'm reluctant to get into the advisory versus binding discussion, but that has not been my charge up to now, to come up with something that is only advisory, wink, wink, nod, nod. That has not been the charge. The converse is the case.
Okay, thank you, Zanetto.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What's the wish of the council?
Move adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Now this works well on a day-to-day basis, but when a disaster strikes, we will not be able to serve you or respond for at least 3 to 5 days.
Preparing for a disaster is everybody's responsibility.
CERT is the Community Emergency Response Team. It is a group of people that are trained to help in the time of a disaster until the first responders can actually arrive.
CERT helps you take care of families and friends in that time that we're not able to respond.
During disasters, we need to work together.
CERT training is fun and exciting.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun and I learned an awful lot.
We are trained to go help in natural disasters or any kind of a disaster, mainly in our own neighborhoods.
I thought it was great. Everyone came together and worked as a team.
CERT builds strong neighborhoods. I hope more people do come and take the class because as somebody who is concerned about what's going to happen to my neighborhood in a disaster, I'd really like some additional neighborhood support.
I would definitely recommend this to everyone in the community.
Our city needs your help. CERT is an amazing opportunity that you can help us during a disaster. We need you to be leaders in our community.